everybody, this is Big Law, and I am here filling in for my brother Ric Serritella. Oh man, I can tell you one thing: it is heating up, and this is your all access show. And also, we're putting in the NFL Draft Bible with this episode as well. And I think the times when we get into moments like this, we start thinking about especially when teams are not doing that great. We get into draft season or draft mode, and for me right now, this is always number one, a welcomed opportunity to work with my guys, and also just kind of get into what exactly is out there, when teams are looking for players. And this is the premier place to come. And I'll tell you what, as Ric always says, buckle up, strap up. Let's get the smelling salts. It's time to rock and roll. But before I get started, I want to bring in my guy, scout extraordinaire, my man, Russ Lande. How you doing, Russ? How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to stay warm. It's about 5 degrees here in Chicago, so trying to find a way to stay warm while I sit here in my office.
Of course, everybody knows Russ. Russ is in Chicago, and he is, if you look at his resume, of course, started or cut his teeth with UCLA on the scouting team there, then wound up going to the
Rams,
the
Browns,
St. Louis Rams, right?
Well, the last year in LA, then I moved with them to St. Louis.
Okay.
Then I got fired at 27 for being sort of a smartass. Moved
Okay.
back to New York, did the NFL Today show. I was sort of Jim Nance's information guy for 2 years when he was the host of that, and did the XFL way back in the original days, then jumped with the Browns and did that for 3 years. And then I started my own scouting company. Thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life. And then out of the blue, the CFL came calling in 2013, and I did 11 years in the CFL, won one championship my last year with Toronto in 2024. And now I am back to doing sort of draft analysis and media. So I've sort of gone every direction you possibly can in this business.
So I guess the Argonauts, and when you got your championship, how was that, man? That's something, I always aspired to be a part of a professional football organization and going to the tops, in the mountaintops. Kind of give me an idea and tell me what was that like, becoming a champion, in an organization such as the CFL.
Well, I will say it was a little different because it's the CFL and because I was sort of consulting from the U.S. that I wasn't up there. So I wasn't around the team during the season. I was just sending in information to their assistant GM, John Murphy, and he was sort of using my information to help him and help everybody up there. But I wasn't up there, so I didn't get to, unfortunately, experience the Grey Cup itself. But after that was my 18th year with the team. To even be a tiny little minuscule part of a championship is an amazing feeling. That to know for that year I was part of the best in a whole league, and to have a guy like John Murphy trust me to bring me in, and Pinball Clemens, their GM, to let me consult for John and the whole coaching staff there. The job they did was incredible. So to just be an infinitesimally small part of it was a great feeling.
Yeah, my guy Murph, man. Yeah, John, we would do shows. It's been a little bit time for me to being up here. I was actually on the show about 2 months ago with Ric, and we kind of looked at some of the Virginia games and some of the players that were out there, and I did some things with him on this show a couple months ago. And then of course before 3-4 years ago, and maybe a little earlier, I was working with John on this show as well, and learned a lot from Murph, man. I can tell you, he's has a real knowledge base, and and being where he isn't, when it comes to so he's the assistant general manager of the Argonauts right now, right?
Well, he isn't now. I think he's trying to find a spot with a different team.
Okay.
They had a whole front office change when their head coach Ryan Dinwiddie went to Ottawa. They the whole front office there has been sort of uprooted. So I think Murph is trying to see what other opportunities there might be in the CFL. And you hit it right on that. Murph's memory, his knowledge, he can think of guys when someone says, "Oh, I need a quarterback who can throw on the move," and he can say, "Well, how big do you want him?" They'll be like, "Oh, anywhere between like 6 and 6'3". He'll be like, "All right, here's 3 names." Like, he knows guys. His memory, his ability to recall guys that he's seen that have been recommended to him is incredible. And that's what's allowed Murphy to be so successful, is he never forgets a name and he remembers where they all are.
That's right, man. That's right. Yeah, and like I said, I learned a lot from him just by working with him, on the NFL Draft Bible, on All Access, and just kind of figuring out exactly, sure, you see him on television, but then really digging into, the scouting piece and trying to figure out exactly what's what, what players belong where, the projections for them, and of course, you and I are about to get into some projections here, or get into a little bit of scouting of some of these players, with bowl season fully underway. And being that we have the bowl season fully underway, and quickly, I got to shout out to my guy, Rick. I hope you feel better, brother. Hope you got you feel, a lot better this weekend, and I'll be catching up with him. But like I said, we got a game today. It's called the Buckle Up Bowl, and this is a Ric Serritella bowl that I called him, and we were talking on the phone yesterday. I said, "This is your bowl."
Exactly, right. This is where he needs to be.
Yeah, I said, this should be named for you, because that is his statement that he has, for every show. Is to make sure you buckle it up, double chin strap.
Yep.
Yeah, double chin strap. You know what I mean? But this is I guess a Buckle Up Gronk, presented by Gronk, bowl.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So today we have Boise State going against Washington University, and Boise State 9-4, Washington 8-4, two teams that I feel are, that kind of just missed the bowl championship bracket, and as far as I'm concerned, I feel like a lot of these teams that are on the outside, you're going to get a lot of players that aren't gonna play in them. By any chance, have you heard of Denzel Boston? Is he playing or not in this?
I have not been told if he is or isn't. I mean, I think after the sort of the lack of great team success, but his still being out there every week, being consistent in his first year, sort of breaking out, I think he'd be suited to maybe not play in this game, but return to the team. But I'm sure they're not going to let him return if he doesn't play. He would be better to me playing the game. I know there's a risk, and we've talked about this in the past, that there's always a risk. I mean, to me, I always look, because everybody, I hear a lot of people, like fans, complain about these kids that don't play in the bowl games. And I get it. As a fan, of course, you want your best players to play. You want to see your team. Like, I'm a Bruin. I'll be a UCLA Bruin until they put me in the grave. So I want to see all my Bruins play. But at the same time, I always think back to Jalen Smith, the linebacker at Notre Dame. Truly a special player, the best defensive player in the country the year he was coming out, and then he played in their game. I think it was the Orange Bowl, and he didn't just tear an ACL, which a lot of guys do and recover. He tore 3 of the 4 ligaments, catastrophic knee injury, even had some nerve damage. So instead of going in the top 5 in the draft, he went in the second round. And yes, he played in the league and he made a decent amount of money, but I guarantee you Notre Dame didn't reach out and say, hey, here's the estimated money you were going to get as a top 5 pick. Here's what you got in the second round. Here's a check to make up the difference.
Right.
So if a school isn't going to take care of you when you get injured in a situation like that, then I find it hard to then say something bad about a kid who chooses not to play. Because let's also remember, it's not like we're talking about Bill Gates' son playing in a game where, regardless of what he does, he's going to have 50 or 100 million in the bank.
Right.
We're talking about 99% of Americans who the opportunity to earn $5 million is life-altering, changing, generational money. So to ask a person to put that at risk, whose parents may be like your parents, my parents, earning 50, 60, 70 grand a year, to ask him to put his future in jeopardy for one football game where you're not going to protect him, to me, even though they have the insurance policies that try to protect these kids, it's too risky. There's no reason to go down that road. If the NCAA and the schools want to come up with a solution, fine. But I do think that's an area where you can never blame the player for that, because the school is not going to reimburse them. They're not going to make up for the lost money that they might have had.
Yeah, and like Jalen, he never recovered. He was never
recovered. Yep. He was a good, solid player, but he was never the I mean, he was on the verge of a sort of that Brian Urlacher, Junior Seau type
Yes.
guy that
Julian
could.
Peterson, kind
Yes,
of an
the Michigan
athlete
State guy.
where,
Yeah.
yeah, where he could play on the outside, he could play inside, but he had enough speed, and enough talent and quickness where he could, jump outside and be an outside linebacker. If you want to put a thumper in the middle, somebody who can plug and you just put him in and make him versatile, he could have done anything.
He could have, and that's what makes it sad.
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, so that's why I never blame a kid who skips a bowl game, because it's the risk is gigantic, and the school, like I said, some of the schools will help you get that insurance and stuff like that, but still the insurance is for your first contract. And we both know that in the NFL, the first contract isn't what makes you the money. It's
right.
when you survive that 3 or 4 years and you get the big payday. You go from 3 or 4 million a year for your first round pick to potentially 15, 20, 30 million. That's where the real money is. So the insurance to help you is great, but you can't take that risk, in my opinion, if you're a top end player.
Yeah, I think I brought up when you and I talked, like Willis McGahee. He was he got lucky, like you said. He still went in the first round to Buffalo, I believe, but he was projected top 5-ish, 6, 7, 8. Kind of a talent. And when I saw him, he got his knee blown out, I just felt for the kid. And he's I want to say maybe he was even still walking with a limp on draft night.
I think he was, if I remember correctly. He was still limping around, but he played as a rookie. I will tell you, the funniest thing was I was at the Browns that year.
Oh, wow.
And I still remember being in the meetings because Butch Davis had been the head coach at the U. So when we were talking about McGahee, Butch made a joke. He said, Willis really, for his entire career, he ought to take 10% of his check and just mail it to Frank Gore. Because he said if Frank Gore doesn't suffer 2 torn ACLs, Willis maybe never gets on the field at Miami, and we never even hear him. So he was he ought to give Frank some money just because of getting hurt, even though Frank ended up having a hell of a career too. But it was just so funny that Butch thought Frank was just such a spectacular player that he said Willis probably wouldn't have played much if Frank had stayed healthy.
What a factory, man. I can tell you one thing. You know what we should do? We should jump on and do like a +1 or a bonus show and talk about football factories and, schools of positions where maybe, UVA, they kind of known for lately kind of like the box safety school or tight end. At one time, they were known for their tight ends with the lineage and all the tight ends that came through there, where Penn State was also known as like linebacker and now of course the whole thing is Ohio State and LSU, which is the real receiver you know what I mean,
and all those different places are great, but to me the one that stands above everybody in terms of constantly producing at a position is, you just go look around the NFL and how many offensive linemen came out of Iowa. The whole league, because Coach Ferentz and those guys, they train those guys up. I mean, there are guys that come in the 6th round, 7th round, undrafted, and these guys last 12 years. What they do and how they train these guys fundamentally, they are so prepared. And I mean, truthfully, you got to say O-line, but then you got to also sort of flip over and say, all right, do we also now have to say tight ends? Because you have George Kittle, you have the kid
new
with Detroit. I mean, it's one after the other. Kirk is one of the truly special guys with taking 2- and 3-star recruits and turning them into NFL players. When you look at the roster of players that he has around the league, it's amazing what they've done there at Iowa over all these years.
That's right, man. They are the new tight end and I don't think that's a
Laporta and Kittle. I mean, and there's others I'm missing, but those are the first 2 that jump in my head.
Absolutely. Now, I will say, those who are watching us live, if you guys want to throw some comments in the chat, make sure you do, because we will discuss some of your comments that we have there, and also get you in on some of the content that we got going on here. But like we said, there's actually 2 games today. We talked about the Buckle Up Bowl, and there's a player or so. You said Denzel Boston. We don't know if he's going to play, who is the projected projected wide receiver who's going to go in the first round. Not sure, if he is or not. But I guess another player that, to look at is Damon Williams, the quarterback, who, and I want to say he took right over after Penix.
Yeah. Yep.
And his for him to come in and to have that kind of pressure and to, and the same thing for Boston.
Yep,
To
and this
come in,
kid's made strides. The quarterback has
yes.
made strides. I think he's on the verge of next year, I think, jumping into that elite group. He's played he showed this year at times he can be a top end quarterback. Now can he do it on a consistent basis week in, week out, where he's the guy? And I will say it's funny, you're talking about those guys. The two guys I'm interested to see from Washington are actually on the other side of the ball, and it's their two corners. And the reason I'm so intrigued, they have Takaro Davis, and they have a kid whose first name I'm not even going to try, but his last name is Prysock. Because the NFL now has gone to, we want giants at corner. Well, you have Davis at 6'3", 197. You have Prysock at 6'0", so basically 6'3", 190. Both these kids can run. NFL teams love long corners. They would literally step over a 5'9.5" All-American for a 6'2" All-Conference.
Dan Quinn. You can thank Dan Quinn for that.
Yes, 100. Dan Quinn, with the old Legion of Boom and those guys.
Dan Quinn. They like those long, rangy guys,
because it makes it easy. If you have long arms, you can control stuff. And when I look at these guys, all I keep thinking in my head is the Baltimore Ravens, because they love them big suckers. They love just sticking them up there and say, knock that guy off the field, beat him up, and that's what these guys can do. Davis is a more intriguing kid. He's a little bit twitchier. Got a little bit more speed. I think he's got a chance of pushing to maybe squeeze into the bottom of the first, although I think he's more of a second or third rounder. Prysock is a guy that's a little more raw, but both of these kids are going to probably go higher than most people think, because if you're almost 6'3", if you run well, you interview well, teams will figure out a way to use you, because there just aren't enough humans on the planet that are that long and can run.
That's right. You're absolutely right, brother. And for Boise, Cage Casey, talk about standout, 6'5", 316, who plays the tackle. I think he'll bump inside on the next level. I think from a road grader standpoint, from a just, I'm in front of you, and I'm gonna, put my hands, I'm gonna lock out and drive you down the field. He is all of that. Now, from a pass blocking standpoint, I think you want to limit what you do with putting him in space, and that's one of the players that I'm going to have my eyes on, in addition to their running back,
Yeah, but he's the guy to me. He's the guy because, I mean, people can talk all about the fancy receivers around the NFL and corners and this, but you and I have been doing this a long time, and almost every team that wins, they win because they're winning that line of scrimmage. And this kid, he has a huge advantage because, yes, I agree with you. He's probably an interior guy in the NFL, but because he was a tackle in college, he's got that experience. He's used to having a pass block on the edge. So now if he goes inside, and I think it's important to state a lot of tackles can't go inside. A lot of them are too upright, not real physical. They don't survive inside. But this kid is physical.
He is physical.
He's violent. So combined, he has experience being on the edge. Now we can bring that physicality to a place where he's going to have a little protection around him. To me, this is a kid, there's a lot there to like. I would assume, from what I've heard, he is going to probably stay for one more year because he's probably not a first-round guy right now. I think he's a mid-round guy. But to me, this is a guy I really want to take a peek at, and I'm sure the scouts want to see it because this is a big game. How does he do against University of Washington? They do have some athletes coming off the edge. So I'm really intrigued by this kid. I think there's something there. Whether he can stay at tackle, I don't know. I think like you said best, he is probably a guard. But there's something about this kid that shows real potential for the NFL.
Yeah, thinking Brandon Sheriff, where he's, the kind of, guy where play tackle, but really is a mean gun. And you put him inside, all of a sudden he becomes a Pro Bowl caliber player. I think this kid, I'm not going to call him a Pro Bowler, but, like you said, from the aggressiveness and the power and, me against you, you don't want him, to line up against him, but so many times in the game, you know?
No doubt. And I'll just to give you sort of another story, just so people out there get a feel for just sort of, they don't understand, I don't think, most people, the violence. They see the game on TV on Saturday or Sunday, I think it's all great. But you mentioned Brandon Sheriff, and I always remember, and you may not, I don't know if you remember this, his final year of college, he was considered like the premier guy coming into his senior year. Everybody's talking about him. And week one, he gets hurt. And there were all these reports. So he had to be helped off on a cart. He hurt his knee. He's out for the year. Well, firstly, he played the next week. And I was fortunate enough to interview him at the Big Ten Network when I was working there after the season. So we asked him about it. He was like, yeah, he goes, they got me off the field. It was really swelled up. So he said Sunday, they were able to sort of check it out. They did an MRI and they said, yeah, you have torn cartilage, but no ligament damage. So Monday, he got scoped.
Ooh.
Tuesday, he was walking, didn't do anything. Wednesday, he was walking, didn't do anything.
Wow.
Thursday, he walked through practice. Friday, walked through practice, and Saturday started the game.
Go ahead. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I never heard of a player getting scoped on Monday
and playing on Saturday.
Never heard it.
Yep.
Never heard it.
And jokingly, obviously a joke. He didn't mean it like that or mean it in any way. But someone asked while we were there talking, I think we were walking and talking about it. And his response was, I'm an offensive lineman. It's only a knee. And it's just, and obviously it was more said in jest. I mean, he obviously wasn't saying I don't need my knee, but it just tells you. And I think that a lot of the people out there that sort of follow the draft stuff and follow football, they don't realize the sacrifices and the toughness just to be out there every week. It's not even about recovering from an ACL and that sort of thing. It's just being there every week. It takes an inhuman ability to deal with pain and stuff like that. And the fact that Scherf played 5 days after he had his knee scoped is truly unbelievable.
It really is. You think, that brings to mind, remember Predator, one of my favorite movies of all time, Jesse Ventura. He goes, hey, man, you're bleeding. I ain't got time to bleed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, it's a different world playing in major college football, and then even the NFL. That's even a step up. It's even more violent and crazier.
Well, I can tell you what, I know, the fans are in the stands, but, and I've coached, locally here, on a high school level and also, worked, had an academy and worked with a lot of high-end college bound players. And I can tell you the violence at the line of scrimmage that happens, you don't want to be at the line of scrimmage. You don't want to be on the sideline, honestly, at the line of scrimmage, because you're liable to get taken out at any moment. And you wonder why a lot of those coaches, they have what they call get back coaches.
Yeah, you got to have
other coaches that are their job on game day is to keep players back and alert to what's going on the field, because, at any moment you could get wiped out from a play running to the sideline and put you in the hospital.
I've seen no doubt.
So many times.
I hear so many fans, because I'm here in Chicago, so the Bears fans, they're a different breed. They live, breathe, everything Bears. And when you hear sometimes, how he's got a sprained ankle, how is he not playing? I'm like, guys, trust me, it's not just a tweaked ankle. If it was just a tweak, he'd be out there. And I really think one of the things that would make fans appreciate it more, and I didn't appreciate it until at UCLA, I didn't even see it, even though I was there interning 2 days a week. It was at the Rams, because one of my jobs on Monday was to go in the trainer's room, talk with the trainers, and go over all the injuries so I could give a report to the head coach. And just being in the training room the day after a game and seeing what players are having to do just to be able to get around. And it really opened my eyes to the extraordinary violence of the game and the extraordinary commitment and sacrifice and toughness of these players. We had a player, and I don't remember who it was, I shouldn't say I don't remember. I know who it was. I don't feel it's fair for me to share his name. But we had a player on the Rams who his legs would get beat up often, that he would use a wheelchair on Monday and Tuesday so that he didn't have to walk around and put pressure on his feet. And we jokingly called him Lazarus, because he would die every Sunday, but he would wake up and be back for the next weekend.
Right.
But yeah, it's a different game. And I think that's one of the things, like we talked about skipping these bowl games. I mean, just think about one play in your career can end it.
Yeah.
And is it worth risking that for a college that is not going to support you and your family if you don't get drafted as highly as you anticipated?
I agree, man. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because we had an in-depth conversation about that. Well, about players playing, not playing, the potential of losing what you probably could have had. We'll get into a little bit of that as well. But we also have, before we get to that, do you have a prediction for the game today? Boise or Washington? Who you got?
I'm going to take Washington. I love the two tall corners. I like the quarterback Williams. I think they're going to do better today. Boise, it's amazing what they've done just in the last 20 years, gone from a farm school basically in the middle of nowhere to a major powerhouse. But I think Washington wins this game today. I think it's going to be close, but I do think they win.
I'm gonna go with Boise. I think that they can run the ball. I think that they'll they have a good running back there.
They do.
Yeah, actually.
Yep.
And coming off of the gentiness that used to be
special.
there.
Yeah.
So they got some backs there. I think they're gonna run the ball. I think they're gonna keep the ball out of Williams's hand and see if they can grind the game out with that offensive line as well. Second game today, we got Army Navy. The traditional game. I know, being here in Hampton Roads where I am, it's a huge thing being, we're the largest naval installation in the world, where all the major ships are here. And the Army Navy game is everything here I'll say on the East Coast, but you got San Diego as well with the
Pendleton and
Yep. So, but the Army Navy game is they used to be by themselves, where this is the only game on today. But the one thing I loved about Army Navy game as well is I love the uniforms. I love what they do. They totally go off grid as far as traditional looks, and they bring out all different types of uniforms based off of themes and everything. It's amazing. What they do.
There's nothing like it. I mean, I'm sure you like myself, because we work in sports. I get asked all the time about what games should I go see, and the Michigan, Ohio State people always want to say you got to see that. Auburn, Alabama, UCLA, USC, they all have their games, and I've been to a lot of them. Nothing compares to the atmosphere at an Army Navy game. If anybody gets the opportunity, just go one time. It is above and beyond any game you will ever see, because the difference is every single person that's there in the stands that's in uniform, like this to them, it's more than just this is where I went to school. This is personal to them. It means more than anything people can imagine. So if you get the chance, make it a weekend trip one year, go up there. You will never experience anything like the Army Navy game live. It's unbelievable.
Not only that, you figure, whenever these, the players that are there, they're going to serve. All those young men. I mean, it's rare that they get a pardon, that a player is so good that they get a pardon to play on the next level, right?
Typically, and even then, they still got to go back and do it.
That's right.
When their career is over, it's not like they're done forever.
That's right. It ain't over. You still got to come back, Junior.
Yep.
still got to serve. But all those young men are going to serve the country. Which to me is my father being a veteran of Vietnam. Is always a big deal to me. To to honor those guys and watch the game, because it's really about the colors. It's one of the rare, especially nowadays as we move forward into college free agency, as we're into right now, all the different aspects of what college football is. This isn't.
No.
This is about the truest to its form as what college football was meant to be. And if you want that feeling, make sure you tune in at 4:00 today to watch that game, because these young men are really truly playing for their colors and playing for their service, and that's it. They're not talking about money. It isn't about prestige. It's about, hey, I'm playing. First of all, we're playing for the country, for the country to see, but then they're playing for their service side, whether you're Army or Navy, and then they're playing for the brothers on the field. There's nothing better than watching these young men lay it on the line, and that's what it's about. It's not about the money with these kids. I love it.
No.
Man.
It's a really unique atmosphere, and it's really unique. I think it's just, and that's part of the reason people I don't think understand this. Everybody always asks me, like, why does every NFL team go to Army and go to Navy every single year? And the reason is you hope there's a guy there that's good enough to be your 53rd player, because these gentlemen are such natural leaders, because they've been trained and taught that they make an impact in your locker room. There's a lot of guys who have had careers at the pro level from Army and Navy that didn't even really play. They were backups their whole career, but because of what they did in the locker room, they became the fabric to keep that building together. That's why everybody, from Joe Cordova, the old snapper for the Patriots, I mean, there are Army Navy guys throughout the league over the past 25 years because they always go to they go to both schools to hopefully find a guy. And this year, and I know we're going to talk about the East-West Shrine game, the receiver Eli Heinrich is from the Navy. So here's a chance for him to get that exemption. If he goes out and kills it and maybe gets drafted, he can get that exemption till his career is over. But NFL teams are always looking for that because aside from talent, leadership is one of the hardest things to find amongst athletes. And when you find a kid from one of the academies, most of the time they understand how to be a leader, whether it's a quiet or a vocal, but they can get the team together. So I'm excited to watch the game today. I can't wait to the East-West game to see Eli, get to see him live and in person. And I can't wait to watch the East-West to see the practices. There's so many guys I'm excited to see.
That's right. That's right, man. Well, I can tell you this. I'm just excited that it's bowl season. And, of course, we're getting closer to draft season, which is what we're here for. And like I said before, if you're in the chat, make sure you throw some comments in. We will respond. And also, and maybe even, well, I used to, on some of my other shows, to bring in some clients live, send them the stream and have them jump in based off of what their knowledge was. But, if you got some information, if you want to send in the comments, send it in and we will discuss it as well. But we are here. This is the All Access Show with the touch of the NFL Draft Bible behind us because the draft is on its way. It will be in Pittsburgh this year.
Yep. And it's funny. You say it's draft season coming. Sadly, there are certain franchises like the Jets, the Browns, the Cardinals, where should they just always be in draft season? Because there's no real sense in playing games. I mean, they're sort of embarrassment on the field. Their fans are always looking for next year or the year after or the year after. So for 4 or 5 teams, draft season starts literally the day after the draft. The Raiders, exactly.
Yeah.
Ever since the NFL pushed Gruden out, that team has been an unmitigated disaster. They just need to bring Gruden back. They'll get that. They'll get that place winning again.
Well, that's another conversation we probably have to have. Where will Gruden go next? Because
he wants to coach.
Look, he does want to coach. I mean, and I can tell you he's done well with his unboxings. These schools send him just an ungodly amount of swag. I love watching him do that because he has a good time doing it. You can tell, but also just what schools are, sending him the information or sending him, swag and him opening it up. And
I mean, put it this way. I was lucky enough to work with Coach Vermeil, who I consider truly one of my great mentors and everything.
Yes.
Coach is a truly honest guy. Like everything he says. And to this day, if you ask Coach, and it came up, I don't remember where the discussion was when I was at the Rams, and he's since reiterated, he's worked with Bill Walsh, he's worked with Mike White, he's worked with all these great coaches and executives. You ask him who's the smartest guy you've ever worked with, and he said, well, there's 2. There was Al Saunders, who was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. He was the old head coach of the Chargers when he was 29, and Coach Gruden. He says those are the 2 smartest people he's ever been around in all his years of football. That's a big statement when you think about all the great coaches that Vermeil's been with, Mike Martz, Bill Walsh, all these legends. And he says Coach Gruden and Al Saunders.
Wow.
So it tells you how smart Gruden is. And then you see his success everywhere he's been. He wins. I mean, to me, if you're an NFL team, there's maybe 6, maybe 8 coaches that you would consider over him. Other than that, there's a bunch of guys that he could step in tomorrow, and he'd have. I mean, you're telling me there's so many teams that you could just blow their coach out, put Gruden in, and you're going to at least next year be 500, and within 2 years you're going to be back like the Raiders were when he got there, and they were a disaster when he got there.
Just like Harbaugh, at the Chargers, same kind of an effect. You put him in, he's going to stabilize, and he's going to help your team elevate. You're absolutely right. But let's jump into some bowls. You ready?
Yeah. So the East-West to me, years ago, it was in San Francisco way back when. I remember that was one of my first games that I ever went to when I was with the Browns doing all-star scouting. The game has evolved. It used to be the Senior Bowl and then everything else. And with Eric Galko as the head guy of the East-West, and now they're very closely meshed with the NFL working together. They've really put themselves as to maybe Senior Bowl maybe 1, but this is a close 1A. And Eric's done a great job of really building out a staff where they find guys that not only the bowl games aren't just about finding the best. It's often about finding the guys that NFL teams have the most questions about, because that's what the All-Star game does. So when I look at the East-West Shrine game, I see a handful of guys that NFL teams really say, we don't know. So a few of them to me, firstly, the quarterback, Haynes King from Georgia Tech.
Okay.
Georgia Tech is an old school option offense. So when you watch him play, he's a big kid. He's athletic. He can throw the ball. What's the old line? He could throw a ball through a rainstorm and it won't get wet. I mean, he's got a cannon, but we don't know if he's a good enough passer. You see him look a little raw, a little rudimentary at times. They don't have a complex passing system when you watch it. So you say, okay, he's a perfect guy to bring to the East-West, because now you can put him there. Obviously, he's not going to be as he would be if he played in it 4 years, but you at least get a look. How's he going to look back, dropping back on the center? How's he going to look back in a shotgun, having to read the defense and go through progression? So he's a guy I can't wait to see how the week goes. I want to see Jordan Tyson, the receiver from Arizona State, struggled a lot with injuries throughout his career, has not proven yet he can be a durable guy. But in terms of pure talent, this guy's a first-round talent. Okay. And I think this week is going to be a chance for him to prove, A, here's where I am physically. Like, he can show, yep, I'm healthy, here I am. But it's B, it's going to be when he meets with teams. He's going to get interviewed. And they're going to grill him. They're going to ask him, hey, you missed a lot of time. What's the deal? Are you a guy that's injury-prone? Are you a guy that can't battle through and play through, quote-unquote, pain as opposed to injuries? Or what is it? Because they have to figure this out, because you're not going to use a high pick on a guy you don't know much about in terms of medical. And to me, the biggest question mark of all the guys at the East-West, NFL teams are trying to figure out, a guy that you and I have probably watched 20 times in the last 2 years, is Harold Perkins from LSU.
Oh, you're right.
Because Perkins has been a great pass rusher at times. I mean, an elite pass rusher at times. And he's been a really good linebacker, but he measures it just under 6'1", 220 pounds. So that's not what NFL teams look for as a defensive end, or even as a linebacker. They want a little more weight or a little bit more explosion. Teams are trying to figure out, where does Perkins fit? Is he a guy that's going to play off the ball, or is this a guy you're going to put on the edge and say, sick him, go get the quarterback? I think he's probably going to fit more as a linebacker, but that's why this game is so valuable. You get a chance to put a kid like Perkins in a lot of situations. I would bet he'll be one of the few guys that will line up in one-on-one drills when linebackers cover running backs, and they'll also flip him over and have him in one-on-one drills versus O-lineman as a pass rusher, because teams want to figure out, even if he isn't a full-time defensive end, does he have the skill set when they get to see him live at 6 foot and half an inch? Does he have the skill set to at least defeat elite tackles, to where he could be a 3-down linebacker, but every once in a while, when you change up your call, he could come rushing and be effective. So teams want to figure out where this guy fits. He, to me, is one of the most interesting guys this entire offseason. And there's even more guys. I mean, I'm excited for the East-West game, but Harold Perkins is the most unique guy for this game.
Well, he brings to mind Elvis Dumervil.
Yes, very much in terms of size.
Yep. And Elvis Dumervil, kind of an outside pass rusher. But you know how safeties nowadays, they're hybrids. They really got to be hybrids.
Yep.
They got to be able to play deep. They got to be able to play on the hashes. They have to also be able to cover tight ends, but they have to be able to blitz, where they have kind of a linebacker type presence. Those are your high end ultimate kind of safeties but the safety have to be very, very varied and good, because they have to be able to deal with tight ends. Same thing with this kind of a position, where he's very a hybrid of a linebacker hybrid, where he's, maybe a 3-4 if he can cover the flats, because you're really not going to put him in much more coverage than covering flats. You know what I mean? So it's like,
and that's why this game is great, because they put him in man-to-man on running backs. They're going to get to see him do all the different pass drops. So they're going to get a feel for, hey, you know what? We thought he was just a pass rusher, could only get to the flats. But now we've seen him 3 days in practice, and he'll be able to cover tight ends. He'll be able to drop down the middle too. So that's why these games are so valuable, because you get to put a kid in a position he hasn't been in that you have questions about. You don't have to worry about if you're bringing in the Mendoza kid and play him at quarterback. Well, he's done most of what you're going to ask him to do. So it's not a lot of questions besides, you just want to see him live. But for kids like Perkins, for kids like Haynes King or Jordan Tyson, you're going to ask him either to do some things he hasn't done or find out why they aren't medically out there all the time. So that's why these bowl games are so valuable, is the guys who you have to put in unique positions.
Absolutely right, man. I got a couple kids too. One for sure, being that I'm kind of an ACC guy. You know, I work and I cover the University of Virginia. Been doing it for about 13 seasons. And some guys that I've seen like live, you know, some kids that I'm going to talk about. One of them here is Daryl Jackson from Florida State. And watching what he does, he's 6'5", 337, can play the one for sure based off of his size, but he can play the three technique as well, in my opinion. I've seen him lock out, you know what I mean? Playing a one or even maybe a zero over the center, but I've seen him bump to the three and get penetration, you know, up the field, you know, and look to blow up the play and look for the ball. You know, so, you know, he's one of the guys where, you know, he's going to build your roster. He may not go until third round, fourth round, but those are the kind of players that really build your roster. The ones that I'm not talking about your Ruben Baines, you know,
yeah.
I'm talking about the kid who may come in and sub for Ruben, you know, when Ruben's playing inside, because Ruben Baines can play inside and outside. It doesn't matter with that kid. He has the size to play somewhat inside. And then naturally he can play outside because he's a good pass rusher as well. But, you know, this is the kind of kid who can come in and spell a kid like a Ruben Bain when you have Ruben Bain playing inside and have this kid play, you know, at that three, get penetration on pass rushing downs. And also he has very active feet. Really, you know, and like I said, really good hands. He has a great penetration and lockout and look for the ball that I've seen from him. And, you know, then, of course, you know, he's a really good athlete, Florida State kid, you know, typically from what I've seen from defensive linemen that come from that institution. Also, Brandon Cleveland, another talented kid, 6'3", 315 from NC State, a defensive tackle another kid who started off as a 3-star, you know, and came in, and played at a couple schools, but got to Louisville and also became a difference maker. His numbers don't show that, you know, from a stat standpoint, but from a effect standpoint and what he can do, similar, not quite as big as Jackson Jr., but he definitely can move, has good feet, and also, you know, has a really good sense, and is a good leader. He's a good kid. You know, from what I understand, from what I've seen from him, you know, so, you know, this is what this is about. This information, these evaluations are about giving you information to help build your team. So make sure you go to All Access, sign up, you know, check us out, man, because you're not going to get it anywhere better than right here with my guy here, Ric Serritella, Russ Lande here at the NFL Draft Bible show as well. So anything else you got for this Shrine?
No, the only other guy that I think is really intriguing is the Caden Curry, the kid from Ohio State, because Ohio State's so loaded defensively. I think he sort of gets overlooked a little bit because he's not a huge kid. He's about 6'2", and NFL teams, that to them as an edge guy, that's a little bit shorter than they'd love. And when you watch Ohio State, all he does is make plays, but they've got styles, and they've got this guy, and they've got this guy. They have that defensive lineman 97. Whose name I always forget, but who looks like a Greek god. He reminds me a little bit physically.
Arvell?
Saying character-wise. No, it's I'm already forgetting his name. Jackson, I think is his name. Number 97.
Oh.
He literally looks like Alonzo Spellman walking around. Got these arms that are hanging down to his feet.
Yes.
He dominates people.
Wow.
And he was the one who was getting held every single play versus Indiana, but they never called it. So he gets all the attention. Their nose tackle, Washington, gets all the attention. They have the two linebackers, Igbinosun, the corner. So those are like your five guys that everybody's talking about potential first rounders. Caden Curry's a really good football player. Fundamentally sound, great positioning, knows how to use his hands. This week at the East West will be a chance for him to say, hey, forget about my teammates. Look at me. Because I think this is a kid that's going to be better in the pros than he is sort of anticipated to be because he's getting overlooked a bit. I think he could make a big splash down there at the East West. I think he could put himself in position to challenge to be another Ohio State first rounder.
Oh my goodness. So, you know, you're talking about, and I don't like to say this too much, but like maybe his growth is stunted a little bit because he doesn't have the reps. You
Well,
know?
it's both the reps, and I think part of it's just the attention. Like a perfect example, and it's Ohio State again, sort of ironically. There was a player, and I'm sure everybody knows the tragic story of Corey Stringer. Corey Stringer
Yeah.
died because of everything. But remember, he was a first-team All-American going into his senior year at Ohio State. He was playing right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was supposed to be hyping it up. Literally within 2 games of his senior year, people were talking about him as the other tackle because the freshman left tackle, Orlando Pace, was so much better. So people looked at Stringer and thought, oh, he's good, but this guy on the other side is so unbelievable. And Stringer still went in the first round. But that's, I think, what's happened to Ohio State is they have the 2 linebackers. I think there's a good chance both are going to go in the first round. The nose tackle, number 97, both those guys will probably go in the first round. The corner is going to be a first or a second round. So I think sometimes when you're looking at so many guys, you start saying, oh, well, he's good, but he's making a lot of plays, but maybe he's not as good as those guys. And they start getting a little bit bumped down, even if they're getting the same reps. And I think that's what's happened to Curry, because that game against Indiana, he was really good. So I want to see how he does East-West. I think he's going to take that flag and plant it for himself and really sort of lock himself in. Maybe not a definite first rounder, but I think he's going to lock in that he is a legit guy that NFL teams can't sit around and say, oh, we'll get him in the 4th or 5th round. No, he's going to put that flag in the ground and say, I'm a guy. You better come draft me higher than people are talking about.
Absolutely right, man. I can definitely see that. And a lot of kids make a lot of money on these practice weeks.
No doubt.
Getting into the game, but a lot of that extra money that they make is being made in practice, believe me.
Yep, practice is the key. Those 3 days, that's what matters. The game is really not that important. There'll be 5 scouts left out of the 200 who were there for the practice. There'll be 5 or 10 at the game.
That's right, because all the work has been done during the week, and they've already gone home and got past the traffic of, of travel. So yes, look, the life of a scout. The inner workings, everybody.
Yes,
pay attention.
Exactly.
Take notes.
Yep, there's no doubt.
Take some notes. Russ is dropping jewels right now. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the Senior Bowl. I'm gonna let you run with this a little bit. So
sure.
The Senior Bowl, of course, like you said, has been the along with the Shrine, but really the premier bowl where a lot of players want to get invited to, and being that the Senior Bowl. Now, what is it? It's on the last day of January.
Yep.
Next year, and and like I said, it's around the championship game as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's one of the few games that are left, of college football. So everybody, and they did that strategically, so that they can say, hey, we are the last game or the last or what is it, the penultimate game next to the championship game. So make sure you watch the seniors come out and play for the last time.
And they're competing. For 40 years, they were the only show in town as the elite game. And now because the East-West Shrine has really upped their game under Eric Galko, I think the Senior Bowl still wants to make sure people realize they are the game. And NFL teams, the East-West can say all they want, but NFL teams in general still have that, I think, preference for the Senior Bowl because of history. Not so much because of which game is getting better players, but the history of going to Mobile, Alabama.
That's right.
Spending your 3 or 4 days going to Winchell's, going to the Brick Pit Barbecue or Dreamland Barbecue and all that. So people love going down there. Wow. So for me, I'm so excited for the Senior Bowl. Firstly, so many players. It's a great week. But again, question guys. So to me, there's 2 guys that stand above everybody else. And then there's a third that's a shade below them. But 2 guys above everybody else. Firstly, Caleb Banks, defensive tackle, Florida. Coming into this year, people were projecting potentially top 10 in the draft. But he suffered an injury in fall camp. He only played a game or 2 this year. And this is a kid, you talk about a beast, 6'5.5", 350 pounds, or 330 pounds, I'm sorry. Big, long arms, powerful, but he's also athletic. When I watch this kid, there's a little bit of a reminiscence of a Richard Seymour in that he's powerful. Now, I'm not saying he's a Hall of Fame. Personally, I always like to say, I'm just saying, when you look at physique, length, there's a little bit of that. But the problem is we haven't seen it in over a year because he basically did nothing this year due to the injury. So this is going to be, he's going to be one of those guys that every NFL person they're going to be focused on, because why did he miss this time? How severe was the injury? Is he back at 100%? If he's at 100% and goes out and has a killer week, he's going to be a first-round pick again. But if he looks like he's still struggling injury-wise, they're going to be like, man, this injury happened back in August. What's going on? It's been 5 months, and you're still not there yet. So this is a massive week for Caleb. I'm very excited to see it. The other kid, to me, I think if you had asked a year ago if he would even be a consideration for the senior of the East-West, I think people would have said no, is the Diego quarterback from Vanderbilt. I mean, this is a kid that he's 5'11 and a half, but he looks tiny on the field. He looks like he's 5'9", and he's not your traditional guy. He doesn't drop back, foot in the ground, and ball out, but he's also not Josh Allen, who's just going to run by people for 70 yards. So the question is, NFL teams want to figure out, does he have enough passing skill to be effective in the pocket? Because, and this is something you and I know, Law, it's whether it's Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, even if you are a Superman running with the ball, if you're at least not good in the pocket, NFL teams aren't going to consider you. Because if you are an awful pocket passer, coaches like Spagnuolo with Kansas City, well, if you can't throw the ball, I'm not going to let you out of the pocket. I'm going to force you to sit in the pocket all game and make you beat me. So NFL teams, So NFL teams want to see, can Diego be a pocket passer at the NFL level at a high enough level to where he legitimately can play quarterback? Or is he more of a guy that he is sort of a schoolyard kid who's so gifted throwing the ball, he can run around and make plays happen, but he may not work within a functional offense? And that's what teams want to learn. And I'm not knocking the kid. I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm just saying that is the question teams have. Can he function in a more traditional offense with now the RPOs, but you still got to function within the pocket? Can he do that at an NFL level? Teams want to know. They also want to know, does he have the arm that NFL teams are looking for to make all the throws? So those two players, Banks and Diego, to me are the two guys above all else that are so intriguing for the Senior Bowl.
Could he be a little bit of a Taysom Hill kind of kid? Where he's a great runner. As a quarterback, he has great feet. He has the attitude and the grit, and the moxie to understand that, okay, I got to get this first down. The kid can catch the ball, if you need him, he has great hand-eye, it looks like. Could he be like a Taysom Hill kid where, he would throw the ball when you're really not expecting him, but can be kind of an all-around gadget offensive player? You know what I mean?
I think, and that's the debate is he a gadget guy? Or when you look at size and athleticism and scrambling ability, is he a little bit Russell Wilson-like? He's shorter than ideal.
Yeah.
When you watch him play at times, it's unorthodox, and that was Russell at times when he was in college. He was at NC State and then at Wisconsin. But he could run the ball, and he was efficient running with the ball. Diego's very efficient. Doesn't take many hard hits. Make sure he gets down or gets out of bounds. So I think teams are trying to figure out, okay, where is he? Is he, like you're saying, that gadget guy that's going to be a backup and fill a bunch of roles? Or does he have that skill set to be a Russell Wilson type quarterback? That's why I think teams are so intrigued. Also, they want to interview the kid. They want to get a feel for, what is this kid like? How is he going to handle it if he comes in and he's got to be a third for a few years? A lot of guys can't do that. A lot of guys that are really good starters in college, they can't handle being a practice squad guy that goes up and down on the roster for 2 years. They just walk away. So you got to find out, how much grit does this kid have to chase the dream? So to me, he's so intriguing, because there are plays where you watch him where he looks like Russell Wilson in terms of his ability to create, do things. And then there's other plays you look at him and you don't see the arm. And you say, I don't know if he can make the throws necessary to survive at the NFL level. So he, to me, may be the most sort of intriguing, but also I'll bet you the opinions are split on him around the NFL. I'll bet you there are people that love him, and I'll bet you there are some teams, I'll bet you, that have him as an undraftable kid.
Yeah, absolutely right. And he is, everything you're saying is spot on, but his entertainment factor is on 1,000.
A million times. No, he is so fun to watch, and he's got that sort of charisma when you watch him. He gets his teammates pumped up. He's a leader. They love him. And a lot of the time, you've been doing this just as long as I have. A quarterback who can get his teammates to sort of buy in. They
Right.
play at a higher level. The teams win. That matters. I've never seen in all my years of scouting a quarterback be successful at the NFL level as a starter who didn't have that it, because you've
Yeah.
got to be able to get your team to be better when you're on the field. There are a lot of very talented quarterbacks that come in the NFL and fail, and a number of them, because they don't have that ability to get the team to buy in, they can't get the team to rally. Certain guys have that it. Russell Wilson had that it when he first got in the league. Josh Allen has that it. Lamar Jackson has it. Certain guys don't. Does this kid have that ability to get? Now, it's also different. It's easy to get college kids to buy in. They're excited. They're young. You get to the pros. These are adult, grown people who have mortgages and
These are
families.
paid grown men.
Yep. And convincing them to buy in is a whole different thing. And that's why
right.
when you find somebody who can do that, it's worth more than almost anything else. So I can't wait to not only see him, but I can't wait to hear from NFL teams how the interviews go, how this kid comes off in interviews. Does he have that it, or is he more of a sort of I'm a me guy, or is he more quiet? And I want to hear how those interviews go to get a real feel for what this kid's like.
Well, he really strikes me as the team loves him. You know, the kid that that the players are gonna put on their shoulders and walk off the field with him.
Yep,
you know,
for sure.
on the shoulder, and he just, I don't know. And like I said, from an entertainment standpoint, he's box office because, you know, whether he's doing it great or not, you know, people are gonna want to watch and see what he has going on.
Well, there's a little bit of Manziel in terms of how he plays on the field. And I don't want to draw comparisons to the character side, but in terms of his basically pulling rabbits out of a hat when the play goes sideways, this kid's got that. And he's got that moxie when you watch him. There's something about him. I can't wait to see how this week goes for him down in Mobile. He'll be a very interesting guy to watch.
Anybody else from the Senior Bowl that you wanted to highlight before we?
There's a few other guys. Firstly, the third guy I was going to mention is the Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker from Texas Tech. I think when you watch him initially, you think, oh, he's a traditional inside linebacker. He's a little bit stiff. Can he run? Is he just going to be a box guy? But as this year has progressed, you've seen, oh, wow, look at him playing off the ball. Look at him in coverage. Look at him running. And you think, oh, this guy may be more than just a traditional sort of stiff Mike linebacker who there really isn't a spot for in the NFL anymore. Now you look at him and say, okay, he may be athletic enough to be an all-around three-down linebacker at the NFL level. Very intriguing kid. I can't wait to see him sort of challenged at the Senior Bowl, where he's going to have to cover better running backs, better tight ends, and be quicker and faster in everything he does, because these are the best of the best at the Senior Bowl.
Quick nugget about him.
Yep.
He started his career at Virginia as a quarterback. He came in as a quarterback, as the third quarterback on the team 4 years ago.
Wow.
And yes, under Coach Bronco Mendenhall.
Oh, okay.
The quarterback. Okay. Then he sat for a year, but then he played like they had a kind of a gadget player, player in their offense, and he used to be Keaton Thompson. Right.
Oh, okay.
He was the backup for Keaton Thompson as the gadget player.
Oh,
and every time he would get in, he was electric. With his athleticism, he was gritty, he was strong. So to see him make that transition to linebacker and to be, he's all conference, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's legitimately a really, really high-end college linebacker.
Right. Yes. And to see him make that transition to be what he is, I was like, wait a minute, that was the UVA quarterback.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah,
that's got to be a shocker to you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he's crushing skulls now and running all over the field, making plays. I was like, that is phenomenal. But that was a nugget on him.
Yeah, he's a good football player. I can't wait to see how he does when he's put on the field and sort of, it's either sink or swim. You're with better athletes. You're going to be forced to do a lot more stuff. Let's see how you look athletically, because he has looked better this year than I expected him to be playing off the ball in coverage. I did not see it a year ago. This year, I see it.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Any more kids you want to cover? Any more kids you got to bring up?
The only other guy that's intriguing is the kid Alex Harkey, the right tackle out of Oregon. I think when you watch Harkey, you see a kid that's a little bit stiff, not a top athlete. I don't know for sure. I wonder if when they get to the game, he's going to do some guard and some tackle. I love him in terms of his competes, his smarts, his instincts. I don't know if he's got the feet to handle playing tackle. But Senior Bowl is a great time to see his feet. Can he be tackle? But also just see what he's like in terms of if you do have to put him inside for a few reps here and there. Is he the guy that's going to complain about having to slide in and play guard? Or is he the guy who's going to be, hey, wherever you need me, whatever it is? Because trust me, there are a lot of guys who get to the league and they are tackled their whole life. And when they get asked to move in, they're like, no, I'm a tackle. Well, no means you probably aren't going to be in the league very long if you're not listening to the coaches when they say you might need to play guard. So I'm sure he'll at least try it there. I just think he might be better suited as a guard. I don't know if athletically he can handle playing on the edge at the next level.
Well, I can tell you, the more versatility you have, that means value. That means money. Value,
no doubt. I mean,
so
the perfect example, if you think about it, and you know this just like I do, is NFL teams every week there is a fight for who's active on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
So every team, ideally, if everything was perfect, they'd love to only have to carry 7 linemen into a game. But most teams go with 8 because you need a backup tackle, backup guard, and backup center. Well, you hope you can get a guard center guy who can be your third guard, backup center.
That's right.
And if you can do that, you can go to 7. But occasionally you get a guy, and there was a kid that played at Bowling Green, and for some reason his name is slipping my mind right now. Now he's in the CFL with Toronto. But he came out of Bowling Green. He lasted 4 years in the NFL, mostly on the practice roster, but often on the 53, because in college, he started over 10 games at tackle, at guard, and at center. He was his name's Ryan Hunter. He's 6'5", 325. He was not good enough to start at tackle in the NFL or to start at guard, but he was good enough to be your emergency 4th tackle, your 4th guard, and your backup center. And those type of guys, he is legitimately, in my opinion, I know Ryan, he's a great dude. I don't think he's an NFL talent in terms of if I have to line up with 5 guys, no chance I want him in those 5. Mm-hmm. But because of his versatility, his smarts, and his competes, he can be that 5th, or not the 5th, he can be your 6th or 7th on game day. And those guys have so much more valuable than a tackle who may be better than a guy like Hunter, but all he can do is help you at tackle. Because in the game, if you have a guard go down and you have to put in your backup guard, now you got nobody else because this guy's only a tackle. So if he goes into guard, things are going to get disastrous. So a kid who can be your emergency, versatility for O-line often leads to long careers for backups, even if they never become starters. So yeah, a kid like Harkey, size, smart, instinctive. If he can show he can play guard, and I think based on his length and his smarts, he could probably get by as a backup center. This kid could be a guy that lines him up. Even if he isn't a starter, he could have a long career as your 6th lineman on game day.
When you think about that word, hybrids, we've said it about safety. We said it about linebacker. Now we're talking about linemen.
Yep, for sure.
Can he play all up and down the line? And if you can, value means money.
Yeah,
right?
It does. Yeah, it really does. I mean, there are a lot of guys, and I've been in this business a long time, where you hear people talk about he's a right tackle only because he's not athletic enough to play left tackle, and he can't get down and play low enough to be a guard.
Yeah,
so
can't bend
his knees. That was a common thing 20 years ago. Nowadays, when you literally are watching, can you say right tackle only? You're pretty much saying he's a reject. Because unless he's Superman and he can dominate at right tackle, you're not going to keep him on your roster.
Yeah.
So versatility for O-line, it's probably the position where it's most important because on game day, guys get thrown into all situations when all of a sudden 2 guys go down hurt. You don't have a choice between saying, oh, well, this guy's better at tackle, we're going to play him there. No, you only have 5 guys left in uniform. You put guys out there. So versatility for an O-lineman is literally often the definition of how I'm going to have a long career, even if I'm not a starter.
It's almost like right tackle is like the last position you fill.
Yeah.
You know, on the offensive line, it's like he's usually your least athletic.
Although it's changed over the years because now you get pass rushers off the other end. It used to be just the Lawrence Taylor against your left tackle. Now they have to be good because Nick Bosa lines up on the left a lot. People like that. Now you need both guys to be dynamic.
That's right. But back in the day, your right tackle, because typically your guard, your center, okay, your center is pretty much a quarterback of your line. Your left tackle protects the backside. Your 2 guys, your 2 guards are pretty much, the gateway so you can run your offense, and the right tackle was like, all right, he's out there. He just makes sure he washes the guy outside.
Yeah.
Because the quarterback can, right-handed quarterback can see what's happening, anyway. So that right tackle just has to not be able to ruin the game plan. He wasn't like a difference maker, right? Then guys like Lane Johnson start,
Exactly. And they make your life so much easier. When you have an elite right tackle and an elite left tackle, all of a sudden life becomes easy.
Change the game then, yeah. You can do anything on offense if your right tackle's elite, and your left tackle's damn good too, But yeah, let's get into the American Bowl. Looks like we're here about an hour and 8 minutes, so let's keep this thing running. You and I, man, we got some chemistry running here.
This is going good.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. So I got a player I want to highlight as well.
Okay.
Started off with a kid named Jamari Taylor, played at University of Virginia, covered him for this whole season, came from North Carolina Central and was all-conference player there in the MEAC. But one thing that's really cool about him is you'll see that he ran for 1,100 plus yards, caught for over 200 plus yards, but he had 15 touchdowns at North Carolina Central. So he was a player that Virginia, that I don't want to say kind of fell into their lap, because apparently there was some recruiting going on from the rival Virginia Tech with the same kid, but he wound up coming to Virginia, and oh boy, did they get a special one. He wound up being first team ACC, and ran for 1,050 some odd yards, 14 touchdowns, and was just at 5'9", 204, probably pound for pound one of the hardest kids to tackle, on the East Coast, my opinion. I'm just watching him, and I see linebackers have him lined up in the hole, getting ready to tackle him, and he gives them a little this, a little here, a little over here, and they're left, trying to hang on to his leg, and he pulls his legs away, and he's getting extra yards downfield. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of his games.
I've seen clips. I haven't gotten to watch much of him.
He is, a sleeper to me. I think he's a late round draft kid as well, but I think he will get drafted. I think he'll surprise some folks, in this coming up week, for practice during this American Bowl. This is the first ever American Bowl as well. So that'll be really cool. I think the more bowls, after the season, the better. The more exposure we can get to these kids is great, because there's a lot of kids that may fall through the cracks, and also it gives not just for the NFL. We're talking CFL, we're talking
UFL, all these.
UFL,
they all get an opportunity to look at these kids. And
that's right.
No doubt.
More looks, more time. Yeah. So Jamari Taylor is a kid that I'm really looking forward to. That is January, I believe the 26th. Is when that game is going to go. But who else do you have?
I got three guys in this game that have huge question marks.
All right.
They have to prove themselves. So the first one is a guy named Jeff Percy, a tackle out of Pitt. When this season began, on the national and Blesto list, this guy was listed as a potential first-round guy. He was really well thought of. Big, long kid, 6'7", 300 pounds or 310 pounds, quick feet. I think some of the questions with him are, when you look at him, he looks so thin at 310. He looks trim. I think teams are trying to figure out, does he have the strength to play at the next level? Where does he fit? Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? There's a lot of questions, but he's really intriguing because he is long and he has quick feet, and they're so rare to find guys that tall with good feet. So I want to see how he does. The other two guys are corners, and they're completely different. There's a kid named Gerard Washington, big, tall kid at 6'1" out of South Carolina State. So he's been HBCU. I want to see this kid athletically. When you watch him, he looks twitchy. He looks like he can run. But I want to see him. We're going to get better talent here. We're going to get better people. I want to see, how does this kid do with the level of talent go up? He's a long kid. I want to see him. Like we talked about, NFL teams are killing for tall corners. This is a chance for him to go prove, hey, I wasn't just successful against HBCU guys. Not to knock HBCU, but with the NIL money, the money's going to P4 players. So HBCU guys, a lot of the good ones are leaving after their freshman year and going to P4. Well, this kid was at South Carolina State. Let's see how he does now when he's going against the kid from Tennessee or when he's going against the kid from Cincinnati. Let's see how he does. It's a chance for him to make some money. The other kid to me that's really intriguing is Nasir Bowers, a corner out of Toledo. Now, when you look at
Mm.
Nasir, phenomenal college player, twitchy, explosive, ball skills. But in the NFL today, 5'8" corners, you have to be Superman. So he needs to prove this week that he's special. Because the old joke in the NFL used to be, I don't like corners. If I could eat peanuts off the top of their head. Well, this kid's going to have to prove he's not just a good athlete. He's got to prove he's a special athlete. Because if you're not special and you're 5'8", it's been nice knowing you go up to the CFL because you're not playing in the NFL.
And forget about outside.
Oh, you'll get chewed up.
Never.
No, exactly. And that's why this, to me, he may be the guy who has the most to gain or lose because he could either cement himself as a draftable guy if he shows he's a twitchy, elite, rare NFL athlete, or if he just looks like a smooth, fluid kid. It's been nice knowing you. You're probably going to struggle to even get an opportunity because short guys who aren't twitchy, it's almost not even worth having them. And I hate to say that, but short corners who don't have top end explosion and speed, I don't know where they fit in today's NFL.
Yeah, because the bigger guys have that too. The big guys are twitchy now.
Yeah,
and
if they're not, they're at least big.
Yes, they're at least big.
Yeah,
you know,
so
and have long speed.
Those are the three when I look at the American Bowl. That there's some other good players, but those are the three that jump out that have questions about them. Like there's a lot of small school kids, Youngstown State, James Madison. Obviously, they have to prove themselves. But these three guys to me are the three that get me excited about, hey, this is a game. A lot of time these smaller bowl games, people don't go to. Teams send one scout. This is one where if I were a scout, I would be focused on these three guys along with everybody else. But these three, because I want to see where are they? What type of player? Are they legit NFL guys? Or are they guys that we can cross off the list and say they're not good enough?
Right. Well, I can tell you a lot of these kids are looking to make their futures, and the competition is there, and I'm ready to see how these kids shake out and see what we got when it comes down to seeing who gets drafted, who's going to be a UFA, and who's going to go up to Canada, and beyond. So
yep.
So yeah, let's we got a little bit of time here. Let's do it quickly. Let's do something on the Hula Bowl. Really quick.
Okay.
The Hula Bowl, of course, not being played in Hawaii as usual, being played in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is beautiful as well. I love West Palm Beach. Flew in there for the first time this year and hung out there and saw what it was like. Love West Palm Beach. So that's where the game is now on the 26th of the month as well of January. So let's kind of get into that. I got a couple kids, but I'll go ahead and start. One kid that I'm looking forward to seeing is Wesley Bailey. I watched him play live, defensive end at Louisville. Has shown to be, that twitch you want, but is it a consistent twitch? You know what I mean? Is it something that, he had, like I said, 6 sacks coming off the edge, felt like he should have had, quite a bit more. With his ability. Louisville was one of these teams, has been a really good team under Brom for quite some time here in the ACC. But, this kid, to me, I thought was going to wind up with double-digit sacks this year, just watching his ability. And for him to only end up with 6, it's a little bit of a concern for me. But, whenever you got defensive ends that are at 6'5", 265, they're going to get extra looks. He's going to get drafted. He's probably a mid-round or a third-day kid, early third-day kind of a player, based on how, he works out in some of these bowls and these practices. But, can make himself a lot of money these coming weeks here.
Oh, there's no question. And we always talk about in the CFL, like we talk about why it's so hard to find pass rushers, because in the NFL, if you have a pulse and you've shown the ability to occasionally get to the quarterback, you probably will bounce around with tryouts and practice squad opportunities for 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Because the hardest position other than quarterback to find is guys who consistently can get in the quarterback's face.
That's right.
If this kid just goes down there and shows, hey, I'm not dominant, but I've got the skills, I need refinement, I need some time and some coaching and development, He could be a guy that lasts 8 years in the NFL. And there are guys that last 7, 8 years that aren't even active more than probably 10 games. They're the last guy on the practice squad, then the last guy on the roster, never on the active game day. But because they show something as a pass rusher, they last. So he's intriguing. Two guys that I'm excited to see, Jaden Nixon, the running back out of Central Florida. Not a big kid, 5'9", 185 pounds, but you talk about twitch and go. Yeah. This kid, if there's a crease, it's over. Yeah. Now, NFL teams want to look at him and say, okay, is he a slot sort of receiver? Is he a third down back? Because at 5'9", 185, it's unlikely you're going to be a 20-touch guy.
Okay.
So where does he fit? Can he be a third down back? But if he's a third down back, is he going to be able to help an emergency in pass pro, or is he going to get run over? So they want to figure that out. Or is he natural enough catching the ball that we could legitimately say, all right, he's going to be an occasional third down back, but he's really going to be a slot guy. So I think he's got an intriguing week there to sort of prove himself. And the kid that I'm intrigued by also is Will Paulin, the receiver out of Notre Dame. Not a guy that's gotten a lot of pub, but when you look at him, there's a little bit of suddenness there. There's a little bit of something to this kid when you watch him play. He's not big. He's 5'9.5", 190, but he can run, and he's got smooth hands. He catches the ball. You don't hear it. So he's a kid I'm interested to see how does he do when he's one of the main focus guys. I want to take a look at Nixon and Paulin. Those are the two guys at the Hula Bowl that I'm really intrigued to take a peek at.
All right. And I got one more. Rashad Miller, 6'6", almost 6'7", 310, plays the tackle position, left, right tackle at Louisville as well. You know, the bending, is he bendy enough, to bump inside? He's massive. He's a big kid. And, is he talented enough to play on that right side? I don't think he's not a left tackle. Is he a right tackle or can he bump inside? I want to see his knee bend. Can he bump inside and be one of these big guards, that you talk about?
Well, it's so important. And that's one of the things I think that a lot of people fans on the outside that follow the draft misses. Really tall tackles that aren't athletic enough to play tackle at the NFL. They can't just automatically move inside because if they can't, like you're saying, bend their knees.
Bendy, man.
Those D tackles, if you're 6'6" and you can't bend, those D tackles, there's the old line that one of my coaches always used to say. He used to say, low man wins and first man wins. Well, if you're 6'6" and you can't bend, those 6'1" and 6'2" defensive tackles, they're going to be on you in a heartbeat, and they're going to be lower than you. It's over. So for a tackle to move to guard, they at least have to show the ability to bend, and they got to have quick hands because they got to be able to shoot him to slow that guy down. If they don't have those two things, I don't care how strong they are bench pressing, how competitive they're. They got to be able to bend. So you make a great point. Can Miller show he can sink those knees, bend his knees, sink his hips, and play with leverage? Because if not, it's been nice. You can try it tackle, but it's probably not going to work out.
That's right. And those are the traits a lot of scouts, a lot of teams look for. Can he, like you said, sink the hips, bend the knees, anchor anchor everything and punch. He does have a powerful enough punch to stop some of these pile drivers, who are trying to bull rush you and put you in the quarterback's lap.
Exactly.
Those are, but that's what I'm thinking about for that kid. That's one of the kids I've seen, and he's done well in the ACC, but, he's not a left. He's definitely a right. And he's probably a third day player as well. But these are the kids that we're showcasing that build your roster.
Yep, for sure.
Always. And absolutely. So, it's been a great show, man. It's been phenomenal working with you as always, brother. We're at 119, get ready to be 120, man, on the time. So, is there anything else you would like to add, or is there you want to put your handles out there so people can get in contact with you?
No, the biggest thing is I will tell any football fan that's listening today that's heard this is you get a chance, put on the Army-Navy game today. Yeah. It's literally an unbelievable experience, even not being there, just watching it. It is truly a unique experience. Put it on. You'll love it. I'm excited. We're getting into bowl game season. I love the bowl games. I love getting to see these kids live. And this has been an absolute blast. We had a lot of fun today.
Absolutely, man. It was awesome, brother. And also make sure you check out the Buckle Up Bowl, the Ric Serritella Bowl.
That's right.
This at 8:00 today. You got Washington going against Boise State. Make sure you check that out tonight as well. You got some really good NFL prospects on those teams as well. But my name, of course, is Big Law Lawrence Johnson. You can catch me on Facebook, catch me on YouTube, and also Seven City Shop Talk Sports. Just check me on out there, guys. But it's been a pleasure filling in for my guy, Ric Serritella. This has been All Access with the NFL Draft Bible, covering NFL potential players all over the country. And we will be back next week. Make sure you check us out. And my man Rick should be back. But thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out with us. But as of now, we are out. And thank you for tuning in.